Is sound working now? Thanks for that, Tingle Tingles. I've moved over to my large mic, so just let me know if it's working. Let me know because it should be. Is the sound working? Bit of a bumpy start. Changed the setup. Great. Yeah, it's all right because I've changed the webcam because higher quality video, and I've changed the audio. Hopefully, I don't upset the mic because I've got a large microphone. The Blue Yeti one, because obviously we were getting the newspaper scenario, which I actually think was the fans on the Mac. Not actually the newspaper. I think it's because it was hot. The fans were full pelt, and that was the main issue. So I updated everything. Even got a ring light on the side here, giving us a bit of light. Because one of the things you've got in Spain at the moment is the weather's really naff. We've got a lot of rain in our area, but other areas are seeing some of the worst snow they've ever had in recent history. I think in Madrid, they're talking about new records being made around the snowfall and the temperature drops. But for me, still quite happy. I mean, to be fair, I try not to bash the UK too much, but the gloomy rain out there just seems like my normal day in the UK. It's not really that different. But the difference is, I think next Tuesday the weather clears up here, which obviously is more like it'll be June, July in the UK. So the first thing I want to say is they talk about some new COVID restrictions coming in from the UK side, where they're talking about you having a test before you fly back to the UK. Now, it's all very grey at the moment because they talk about international travellers, and thanks to being outside the EU now, we're obviously going to fall into that category. We're not down in the air corridor. And even when you read the information, they're not even 100% whether you're going to still have to quarantine or not. So then you're sort of going, okay, so why am I having this test? So arrive in the UK, having a negative test and still having the quarantine. What difference does it make? If I was here in Spain on a 2-week holiday, being forced to have this test 72 hours before my flight, am I then going to be forced to be quarantined in a hotel if I was a tourist this end? I mean, obviously, to talk about there is no tourism at the moment, but reality is there'll still be people traveling because we just had, I think it was yesterday, there was somebody arrived from London that didn't have the COVID test before they flew out of London, arrived in Alicante. They got tested at the airport, so they do check for that paperwork. Like I said, I didn't get checked, but somebody did get picked up on it, and they sent them somewhere by taxi to Almeria, I think. So I assume they're probably likely to be a resident because there shouldn't be any tourism. But the fact they didn't bother having a test tells me maybe a case of he wasn't that bothered about the rules anyway. So who knows? But it doesn't help the case of should you or shouldn't you have the test, because it's like the ones that are on about the UK. They're talking about random testing. Now, historically, I normally get picked out of a crowd pretty much every time I go through an airport. I'm sure I'm going to have some colourful words, having a conversation around having to have a test to go back to a country, which, I mean, to be fair, if they turn around and says, well, your flight's already booked, don't need it. And if your flight's not booked from this date going forward, you need to have a test. Fair, fine. But it's like literally having a contract with somebody and then they just change it to suit themselves to fleece you for cash. Not a fan of it. I'm getting a bit frustrated with the UK government at the minute. I'll just run down some of the comments. Nija Mar Alfar, thumbs up to you too. I assume that's around the sound. Phillips John Stevens, handsome Matt, fan since 2015, love from Philippines. Hey, hope it's all going well, mate. Hope life's good. Glenn, the test is expensive for travellers. It is, but the point is, you start to wonder why it's so expensive. Because there's no reason for it to be expensive. I know, looking through the headlines 3 or 4 months ago, the UK lacked its capacity to do testing. Now, Ryanair are already looking at scrapping a lot of their flights up until after April. I mean, I can't say for March because this is going to roll in March without a doubt at the moment. So the point being is there's going to be less travellers from that side. They then have this whole, let's test the NHS regularly. Education, they're testing regularly. They're having these test kits sent out to councils and whatever. You can request them and they'll test kids in the school, for example. But the point is, there's a lot of this stuff going on, which obviously doesn't get fed out the way it should do, which is why a lot of people are sitting there going, what are they doing today? What are they up to tomorrow? There's not enough. There is enough. There may be enough. It just constantly changes. It's just really, really bad governance. Another, tell me about it. So basically, we can't fly to Spain. You can't fly unless you're a resident anyway. You've got to be, I think, resident, business, or from Spain. That is it at the moment. But now you've got to be one of those three and have a test leaving the UK and a test going back to the UK. From what I'm reading, because they're still looking at pushing this through in the sense of, I think they're looking at it to be law for tomorrow, but then there's all the fluffiness of paperwork that will take them a week to sort out because this seems to be the standard process. I was just reading an article around the fishing because obviously the Brexit was all about taking back our borders, our fishing rights and all this. And we're finding that the Scottish fisheries are struggling to send fish to Europe because the bureaucratic paperwork process is an absolute mess, from what I'm reading. And on top of that, it takes 3 to 4 days to move the fish from the UK to wherever they need to go. I lived in the Hebrides many, many moons ago, and they used to fly lobster from there for Paris, for the restaurants in Paris. So I assume all that has been impacted thanks to the Brexit, because the paperwork that, I mean, I think I mentioned this in the other video, where they were talking about the ports, and they're saying there's no problems with the ports. As soon as they said that, I knew there was a problem, because they wouldn't have mentioned it if there was no problem. The fact that they mentioned it is like, don't worry about it. Well, you must be worried about it because you mentioned it, you've looked at it, there's something wrong. And it looks like they've got problems at the ports as well, generally. So it's just a fiasco. It just seems there's been a lack of preparation. There's all this, oh yeah, we've got this organised, got this done. And a lot of it hasn't been put into place properly from what I've seen. I know, folks, this is a little bit personally. I ordered something from Amazon, which I suspect is coming from a warehouse in the UK. It has no delivery date, which I assume they cannot deliver it. I have heard people saying the mail isn't working properly between Spain and the UK. So I have no idea what they've done. Probably take them a month to sort themselves out. But it's definitely not a smooth transition, that's for sure. I know that the COVID vaccine isn't working anyway. New South African variant, they admitted the vaccine won't work against. I bet you'll come forward to say it isn't working against the UK variant either. Funny enough, if you read a BBC article that's recently gone up today about a nurse in Wales, she's disappointed, to put it lightly, that she caught COVID after having the vaccine. Because obviously the vaccine is only 70% efficient. And the other variant, the Pfizer one, is 90% efficient, allegedly. I don't know where this efficiencies come from, because I don't think there's been enough benchmarking to actually come up with a true figure, in my personal opinion, statistically wise. So when they're going 70%, 90%, all it reminds me of is servers when you buy web space. Where they turn around and say we have 99.99% efficiency. Basically, there is a chance of failure. But with this, it's 70, 90. Got out of the second one within 2 weeks, which the UK then moved to 12 weeks. And I think, sorry, maybe 3 weeks actually. Then moved to 12 weeks against what the World Health Organization advised, etc. And you're sitting there going, right, so we're told that we must follow these guidelines, but we're actually being told by some people we're told to trust, like the World Health Organization or our NHS and these medical advisors, that can't make a decision between them. Who do you trust? Myself, I don't trust any of them. Not 100%, because I can't trust the information they're giving us. I know that over 1,000 deaths and 1.5 million people vaccinated. Yeah, but what's the deaths compared to usual time over the 5 years? What's the medium? What is the average over the 5 years? Is it really 1,000 deaths? That is my question on that. Because, but like you say, so the vaccine still isn't working. Well, this is the point. But they're trying to drum up that it's the be end and end all. And now we're finding we've got people coming forward saying it doesn't work. Same as there's been other people bring information forward saying people have died from the vaccine. Yet that is sort of suppressed or whatever goes on there, because I can't confirm what's going on. But some of the media just seems to ignore it, or there's this whole disapproval side on it. It's definitely not saying, hey, I can back my government, I trust them 100%. It's just an absolute mess, and it is getting frustrating. Like I said, I mean, myself, I can afford to have another COVID test going back. But what annoys me is, hey, I may still have to quarantine because they decide it tomorrow, because they'll maybe sitting in one of their little lounges. I mean, the bars open in the Houses of Parliament, or not, because they haven't turned up at work in the last year, because they've got £10,000 allowance for working from home. Is that 10,000 allowance is to actually offset their expenses? Because there's been expenses then about to claim because I haven't gone anywhere. I'll leave that for other people. But the point being is, though, a lot of this stuff, although it's a mess, chaos is often an opportunity. You create enough chaos, it creates opportunity, because people stop going, you can't do that, can't do that. They start looking at, okay, what do I need to do? They stop asking the question, because it creates a environment where people just follow it and get fed up with the nonsense around them. It's like, right, what do you want me to do now? Where do you want me to go? All right, I've got to stay at home for another 12 months. Okay, fine, I give up. But at the same time, it's also how you end up with people doing the complete opposite and giving up. And it's a peculiar environment. It's not a healthy environment, that's for sure. And, you know, there's so many flaws in the policies, like what is going on with them. I agree. I cannot understand what they're doing. They change it pretty much daily. There's no set process. There's not like they're going, I mean, the graphs and all that. You go, right, but your graph information isn't correct. If I can get information 2 weeks later that shows your information's invalid, then you're not doing your job as a government. It shouldn't be that bad. It should actually be working off, this is the information we've got now, these are the sources, and if we find out that it's invalid, we will sack the people involved and we'll name and shame and do something about it. But if we're using it to manipulate everything to suit ourselves, then it's all great, which just shows us an incompetence in the government overall. But like I said, the Brexit thing at the moment does seem to be there's problems with the ports, problems with mail, problems with the fish. I mean, this whole thing about we want all the fish back, but the UK doesn't eat it. That's the problem. A lot of that fish we don't eat. So although we're protecting our waters, I believe that the fishing rights are going to be at least another 5 years anyway. But on top of that, we don't actually eat them. So is it a conservation sanctuary we're actually going for? I have no idea. No idea. Because I think it's only about 2% of the economy or something. But I know myself, I don't even eat fish and chips that often. I'd rather have a curry. I won't have a fish curry. Tastes odd, fish and curry, to be fair. I'm more of a chicken person. So, but yeah, I don't many people I know. Unless I have kippers. I have kippers probably about twice a year. But beyond that, I'm not a big fish person. My wife loves fish, but it's not. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a big thing in the UK the way it used to be. And it's certainly not as big as it is in the economy, in the sense of internally used. It's mainly for export, from what I can see. Another, there are a bunch of liars. They done nothing on the fishing related stuff. I agree completely. I'm sat here thinking, what was the point? Are we going to destroy the Scottish fishing fleets? Are we going to? We've dismantled an industry. It was already dismantled. Don't get me wrong, because there was this whole selling the trawler scenario. But now we can't sell our fish because of the delays in our own paperwork to go to Europe, and that'll just get put on the back burner. I don't understand why that's acceptable. But I did get there's somebody talking about this on Facebook the other day. They got into a bit of a debate around Boris being great in the polls, and I'm like, against who? Who are you going to replace him with? I mean, if I ask somebody name 5 politicians that they have faith in, I don't think there would be many that could actually even name 5 politicians, never mind trust 5 politicians. And probably out of the 5, some of them wouldn't even be alive today. So I think there is a serious problem there. It is a very strange scenario we're in right now. The people in Spain are better at following the rules, I find. Yes, but also the police don't put up with it as much. I mean, I see it in the UK. I've got to admit, I'm not rude, but sarcastic, I'd say. It's like when you're in the park and you get 3 police come up to you, or 2, and I say, well, do you guys live in the same house? You come in the same car? You're a couple or something? And they take offense. And I'm like, but I'm literally just walking through the park. You're the guy asking me questions. I'm just asking you. You're on about people's social distance and that. You're walking side by side. You work together, live together. You're a couple. Well, we don't like your tone. I was like, it's not a tone. It's a question. But it's just out of sarcasm. That we import most of our fish as it is. It's odd. I mean, the whole fishing scenario is a bit strange, because tuna is probably one of the big ones. That's probably a big import in the UK. I know tuna. I eat a lot of tuna myself, but generally, I don't see. I mean, if you go into a Spanish supermarket, there is fish. I mean, there is good fish everywhere, but if you ask me where the fishmonger is in Northampton, a local one, haven't got a clue. In Spain here, I could tell you 4 just within, well, not just walking distance, short driving distance. I mean, Jesus is just here on the corner. He's open every Wednesday. You've got Carrefour's got a big display. The Mercadonas have all got good fish displays. People eat a lot of fish. Now, don't get me wrong. I love shrimp. I love prawns. I love tuna. But cod, I'm not a fan of fish and chips in a big way. Don't get me wrong. Once a month, fine. But even then, I find, I don't know, my taste buds have changed. I find it a bit fatter these days if you go to a fish and chip shop. But maybe they're just the fish and chip shops I go to. I'm not a fan of the greasy fish anymore. My younger days, don't get me wrong, I used to get all the scratchings, get the old chips and then all the scratchings on the top, all the scrapings of the batter. That's probably when I was about 11. But these days, I don't even eat the chips that much. So yeah, but how the world has changed. Yeah, the other thing about in Spain is the police are quite strong with it as well. They'll come around and ask you to wear your mask and whatever, but they don't come wandering up to you. But also, there's no way I'd say the same sarcastic comments to to the Spanish police. They'll just arrest me and fine me. They'll find something to arrest me for on the way to the police station. Where in the UK, I think there's just that respect being lost over the years. I've got to admit, my side is because of their inactivity on actual things that have occurred where they've done virtually nothing. So my opinions are very low on them. But in Spain, I find they're a lot more proactive. It's roadblocks appear and disappear here very, very quickly. They already know who they want, pick them up, gone. Same as their anti-terrorism guys. They go in Chinooks. They're very, very proactive. And I do think they have a lot more opportunity for using a lot of their forces here, thanks to being a bit of a gateway for drugs for Europe. But at the same time, they do have a strong police presence. I know that our waters probably only contain bone-ridden fish like carp and pike anyway. The EU probably having a right chocolate our fortune. Well, it's to be fair, it seems to be mainly the Scottish fisheries that are complaining. Off the coast of Scotland, there's some good fishing out there. Also, there's a lot of fish farms because obviously when there was the whole decline 15 years ago, there was a lot done to actually develop the fishing industry. Bit of a thing here on Spain, just as a bit of a note, just off the coast of Torrevieja towards Guatemala side, they've got some big cages out there where they breed fish, and they've got a hole in the nets. I think it was last year, the year before, some good fishing in the area. Tingles are happy to have a Scottish lobster if there's any going spare. Yes, there may be. They may be coming to a supermarket near you. They'll be swapping them with Spanish oranges. That's my sarcasm cutting in again. But the point being is, you may find that some of the stock may actually become a issue where they will actually be trying to push some buy British stuff again. I've got to admit, buy British, I have no issue with if it's good. You know, one of the problems I found over the years is I don't mind supporting an industry, but it's got to be worth supporting. I mean, try not to say Rover cars, but I remember having the old Rover 200, not the best car I've ever had. Before that, I had an Allegro related to some heavy fines I got when I was younger. So it's the only car I could afford to insure at the time. That thing, you shut the boot and the rust just fell out the bottom. It was a funny car, funny shape, not very fast. It got from A to B, don't get me wrong, but it did feel like you were stepping back in time in comparing it to other cars. It just wasn't. It wasn't great. M. Shackle, lack of enforcement in UK, France, Spain, etc. People have a form to leave houses in first lockdown. Police in UK don't see it as proper work. Yeah, it's. But I mean, this is the funny thing is this. That I was thinking about this morning. They need to start saying lockdown 4, lockdown 5. You know, it's because it's it's more of a continuation. Because let's be honest, we haven't had normality reoccur. We've had constant disruption, so it's just varying degrees of lockdown. It's just eased lockdown, not gone. I don't think we've had any point where we've go back to normal. That hasn't occurred. So I'd say it's one continuous lockdown because we haven't had, you've had to social distance, wash your hands, take these hand sanitizers every time you get. I've got to admit, the sanitizers is a bit peculiar. When they want you to have it, I mean, in Spain, they will check you as you're going in a shop and ask you to do it. But the problem I find is like when you're in habaneros, like we were yesterday, you're going in 4 or 5 shops. You're starting to lose the feeling in your fingers. You've had that much sanitizer and stuff on your hands that it's not good for your skin. Should we all wear? We should wear boxing gloves. That'd make it more entertaining. It'd be more like a video game. Trying to pick stuff up in Tesco's with boxing gloves on and holding your basket and all that stuff. I'm not going to try that. That's something I will get thrown out of Tesco's for, I'm sure. Another Enshackle, that's because they were too busy being successful at whacking moles. Whacking moles, or is this to do with the Brexit protests in London that they weren't really publicised about, or the anti-COVID mask marches in London that also didn't get reported too widely? Yeah, it's definitely... Yeah, it's peculiar. It's peculiar. And Shackle, I would argue that the foundation for some of the police in Spain is revenue generation. Couldn't walk the dog without getting a fine, overzealous. Neither model UK or Spain is great. Didn't say either were great. That's one thing I will not say. But in the UK, believe me, they hit you on the motorways left, right, and centre. I mean, the whole speed camera stuff was all tax. I mean, it was supposed to be safety cameras, wasn't it, in the UK? Safety cameras. And then they were putting them at areas they know people would pick up speed going down a hill. Same as, I think, Birmingham City Centre is a good one, where people end up in the bus lane by mistake because of poor signage. Somebody actually won the court case on that. And that cost, because I think they were getting something like £3 million a year by people going up the wrong way on the street because the way the signs were. But it was actually proven in court that it was difficult to understand the signs. And by the time you've actually understand where you're going, it's too late. You're committed to going into the bus lane. So, yeah. So, yeah, we do get stealth taxed everywhere. Enshackle, well, Austin Allegro, my uncle had the Van den Plas model with airline-style passenger tables, etc. Yeah, they don't make them like they used to, do they? Yeah, I always remember that car. The seats were comfy because they were it was very spongy. But that was about it. I mean, I remember when the distributor cap, I can't remember, the contacts had gone. So it would shoot up to 70 miles an hour, then drop down at 45, and then up to 70, then 45. Because it started doing it when I was going up the motorway for something. I was just like outside lane, inside lane, outside lane, inside lane, until I got back. But yeah, it got me. It lasted a year. To be fair, it did fail every single thing on the MOT, which was the first time the person who tested the car that said he'd never had a car in that poor condition, which was a bit of an achievement. But yeah, it lasted a year. Couldn't grumble. I did have a Metro as well. The Metro was even worse. The Metro I bought for £300, including the car tax on it, because I only needed it for a contract for 3 months. So it was a diesel. I think it was 1.1 litre or something. The fan belt squealed like mad. Radio didn't work. I used to just put the iPod on and just go to work and come back. And I went all the way from Worcester to Lincoln every day for 3 months in that. Parked it away from work in a different car park, but it lasted the 3 months, so I couldn't grumble on that one. That was another one that didn't do too well on the MOT. But bear in mind, I wasn't racing in these cars. I wasn't taking any risks. These things barely moved. It's a bit like being in the Philippines. The chances of me getting run over by someone in the Philippines is quite low, in the sense of everything moves about 40 miles an hour because the congestion's so bad where we are. So the point being is you're not at too much of a risk unless the wheel fell off or something. The Enshackle, they really are quite extreme in Spain. It's got pros and cons, but I remember someone got fined for driving in flip-flops. Yeah, I'm not saying anything about that because I was doing it this morning. But literally, I was going to the other end of the road because it was raining and dropped the kids off at the bus stop. Granny Angie, I'm having the COVID vaccination. Will I still need to have a test on enter Spain and depart? See, now you've got to an important point. They're on about the test. Even if you're tested negative coming into the UK, you may still have to quarantine. which means they're not validating the fact that you're already a negative. It just completely makes it pointless because they're still expecting you to quarantine. Now, the other thing with the vaccine, you may not have heard the bit earlier. We're talking about a nurse in Wales has actually been tested positive for COVID, even though she's had the vaccine. The fact is, the vaccines, let's just say 70 to 90% effective, according to depending which vaccine you've got. So basically, you would still need to do it either way because the vaccine is not guaranteed you won't catch COVID. I think it increases the chance or reduces the chance of you passing it on to other people, and it's effective to a point. But I don't even know where they get 70 to 90% from. I don't know where those figures are taken from. I haven't seen when they put them. I haven't seen anybody put a little link on the bottom saying from this, and it goes to a research site. Over 10,000 people. Da, da, da. I haven't seen that, but I've only seen people go 90%, 70%. So I can't say whether those figures are accurate or not. But judging by the figures we're constantly dealing with, I have concerns whether the information is reliable or not. So yeah, you'll still need the test. And the other thing is, the UK is looking at tomorrow, I believe, to actually make you have a negative COVID test to go back to the UK. Now, what that looks like, obviously they're still talking about it, and they seem to just throw this stuff out there, then suddenly everything magically just works and everything's easy to do. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. Because you may have to get a test at Alicante Airport if they're doing them. No idea. May have to get a private test, and then it just suddenly puts this strain on people trying to get. Because bear in mind, I'm flying back to the UK on the 18th, so I'm going to have to. If this comes in, I'm going to have to look at it myself. So maybe an update, because if it lasts a week or so and they scrap it, all great. But I'll wait and see because the information's not so clear, and I do wonder if we were still in the EU, would we have been able to bypass this? Possibly. Glyn, both Bojo and Trump are reluctant to leave the gravy train, but both countries have become worse off. In my personal opinion, I would agree that there is certainly, I think that's the nature of politics. Trump's a little bit different from Boris, where Boris is a career politician. I'm not aware of anything else that he's done. I am aware from Trump, I mean, people say he's a businessman, all this, but he inherited his wealth from his father, but also a lot of his business practices aren't the most morale out there. So I can't, is it self-serving? I don't know enough about Trump, but with Boris, there is if you look on Channel 4 under their online type thing, look for The Making of Boris. That's an interesting little documentary piece that's worth a look at, because you'll see that it's exactly the same as what they're talking about in that documentary about when he was at university and whatever. Because obviously Boris isn't even his name. But it's worth looking into that. I know that whack-a-mole was that strategy that had a whacking COVID cases as they appeared across the country without locking down prior to when they enforced masks, social distancing. Yeah, it could never work. Let's be honest. You can't lock it down that way unless you're right on top of it. And the fact that we didn't have a blanket of testing, the fact that we didn't have a quick screening, proactive approach to actually shutting this stuff down as quick as possible. By the time the dithering had finished, it had already spread 10, 20, 50-fold, simply because they had left it for so long that people had already moved around and spoken to about 100 other people or been in contact through themselves, others, and spread it that way. But it still gets back to, I still think we're heading towards herd immunity. even with all this other stuff going on. It's the same with the strain stuff, as I mentioned on previous videos. The thing you get with strains is it's expected. The whole point is that you do get multiple strains. So you're looking at now we've got this Africa strain that's just magically appeared. These things are normal. When you have the flu, there's not just one flu, is there? We have different variants of the flu. We have different variants of COVID. Got different variants of SARS. Whatever, these things are already expected. Yet we keep getting told, "Oh, the vaccine's not going to work on this." We have this type of stuff all the time. This is just a constant. There is constantly these type of issues throughout history. The medical systems update their vaccines. That's what it's for. They're constantly battling this stuff. So we suddenly get, "Oh, we're going to have to change the rule book. We're going to have to do it." No, we don't. We just have to let the medical industry do their job and stop trying to change the world to pick up any small variant or whatever, because it's going to be a natural occurrence. The fact that we've had 3 variants since when? Because obviously they're talking about these variants just appearing, but we're probably going to see new variants every few months. Realistically, that we can't stay indefinitely in this lockdown scenario. We just have to accept that this is part of life and move on. That's what should be occurring. If we're going to have the vaccine, have it. If you don't want it, don't have it. But reality is, you can't keep stopping the world every time there's a new variant coming out. It's the same with the other. Oh, it's a UK variant. Is it the UK variant, or is it the fact that it was the UK that picked up in a test lab? Because it could have come from anywhere, which means it could be the same variant in a completely different part of the world. But anyway, enough frustration on that stuff. Another N-Shackle. What do you think of the mask outdoors thing in Spain? Inside shops, etc. Fine, but outdoors in residential streets seems a bit too much to me, especially when hot. For me, I think you should be able to take it, where people are in your proximity and away from that, up to you. So if you're walking on a hill trek, for example, pulling it down and walking up there and then passing past somebody, put it on just before you pass each other, that just seems logical to me at the minute. I don't think there's a way of getting away from that simply because they'll still expect you to have a mask on you. In the same way now, I think we have to have our residency cards and our passports. I think the mask is going to be stuck with us for the next couple of years and beyond. Now, the funny thing is, this isn't new if you've been in Asia. In Asia, masks have been around a long time, but some of this is people self-isolating themselves. So, for example, if you've got the flu or something or a cold, you may choose to wear a mask so that you don't spread it onto your co-workers and whatever. This is why places like South Korea, etc., and Taiwan are very proactive in keeping the spread down, because they do it naturally. It's already part of their system to wear a mask if you're feeling sick. It's to stop you giving everybody else it. They do it already. My wife's a prime example. When we go anywhere, she's always got a bottle of alcohol. Not for that, but for washing your hands, whatever, because it's quite normal. Because when you're out in Asia, you do that. You sanitize your hands before you eat, all this sort of stuff. Same as you wipe the top of things like Coke cans, beer cans, all that sort of stuff, because it's to avoid things like rat urine, because these things get stored in the back of a warehouse. You have no idea what's been wandering around on them. So some of this stuff is very logical, but obviously most of the time we don't even think about it. But in Asia, a lot of people do, and they have been for a long time. But bear in mind, I'm not getting into the whole what goes on in China type stuff around even cooking oil, checking the cooking oil before they cook your food. That's a bizarre one. Stephen Birth. I've come across a camper I'm buying off a customer. I'm going to do it up and hopefully bring it with me when I come. I'll send you some pics, mate. Lovely little project to get on with during lockdown. this is the key thing. A, that's a good one. That means that you've got some mobility to come over to Spain now. But B, you've got a project to work on. And C, even if you decide it's not for you later on, I bet you can sell it for more than you paid for it. So it's win-win-win. But yeah, I mean, for me, I've gone on to the VR, the virtual reality stuff, and I've got another channel. I've already got it on tutorials, but I've started it on the VR stuff. Let me see if I can find it. I'll share it in the comments. Typing stuff, me looking for stuff online while I'm doing this. I can't believe I started this channel 2 years ago.
Hi guys.
Oops. Don't do that. So this, I'll put it in the comments. This one's going to have a bit of the VR stuff on there, but also I put tutorials for stuff that I found painful to do, or I couldn't find the information, or it's useful, you know, like exporting emails from Outlook into Gmail and all that sort of stuff, how to back up things. I do put that sort of stuff into that other channel, which is my tutorial channel. I haven't done much with it for a while. But with the VR market starting to boom, along with even when I go back to the UK, my access restrictions mean I can't get out to site as much as I would like, and I'm trying to reduce the amount of time I spend on the computer screen. Although the VR is not much better, I am trying to do more stuff outside of work. So this is where the VR fills some of that. There's a bit of fitness, doing a bit of the running around, shooting things, using the Saber. Is it Saber Quest? I can't remember the name now. There's loads of stuff. I've spent too much on it already. But the point is, I'm doing a load of stuff on that. And I do recommend, with this other lockdown coming, if you want something to keep you active, because there is some fitness stuff in there. They've got Tai Chi. They've got well-being stuff. You can, I mean, to be fair, even when you just sit there with your head back like this, with a headset on, there is cinema environments where you can sit as if you're in a cinema. Some of them with other people, and some of them you can go and sit on your own, or you can mute everybody around you because sometimes they're annoying. But that's interesting stuff there. I did baits a fishing one. I completed that game in 2 days. It's different. I mean, it's hard to explain it, and obviously I'm going off on a tangent, so I'll leave that for the other channel, because I need to do an update today on what I recommend, because I know a lot of people spend a lot of money when they first get it because they're all excited. What do I need? What software? I recommend don't do that. I'll put some stuff that I do recommend worth looking at. Some of it's free, some of it's useful, and some of it's worth waiting until they've actually developed it to it's a bit better than it is, because otherwise you'll be paying for something that you may have to pay again. Okay, so I'll push that to one side. Another end checker. I noticed people would put their mask on as soon as you walk past them on the street in Spain. Yeah, that's for me. That's the way it should be. In the current environment. But don't get me wrong, I can go. Yesterday, I picked my son up from school, and I will be at 3:30 today. And there's still parents stood outside waiting to pick their kids up that don't wear their masks. Now, myself, I'm not one of these people that go, excuse me, you ain't got your mask. I can't be bothered with that. I'm not here to please people. I just keep my 2 meters or whatever. Well, I normally stand probably 5 meters from most people. But the point being is, it's just a case of looking after yourself. I don't recommend people bothering other people, because there may be other reasons, you know. I mean, for example, there may be somebody that has breathing issues, which obviously shouldn't really be out, in my personal opinion. If they choose to go out, that's up to them. They should be trying to avoid other people like the plague. But there's some cases where people may not be wearing a mask for a reason. But it's not for me to sit there and argue with them. I'm not here to police anybody. I believe I believe in people just use a bit of common sense. And I know common sense is often very thin on the ground, but I think the problem we've got is we have wrapped too much of the world in cotton wool, where we're not saying, what do you think? It's like, you must do this, you must do that. This is the way to do that. And I actually think that's counterproductive. I think most things you should be able to make your own decisions. I'm a strong believer in, as long as it's not hurting or impacting on somebody else's life, I'm not too fussed on what anybody's doing. Glyn, the press like to scaremonger. It's best to just live your life and use common sense. I don't read newspapers. I stopped the newspapers a long time ago. It's when I'll tell you what. It's when you start to dissect the news, and you start. I mean, I don't know if the media's got worse, because maybe other people can tell me. Is the media worse now? Because I mean, I was talking to my wife about this this morning, funny enough, because they had the news on, the Spanish news this was, and they're talking about the weather. Now, don't get me wrong, it's the weather. But normally, in the UK, you used to get the snowy picture behind and go, oh, it's snowing in Scotland today, and over there. And it was very simple, and they'd move. Now you've got people standing in the snow with dramatic music, as if you've got somebody trying to defuse a bomb type thing. Really dramatic type music with somebody standing in snow. I know what snow is. I don't need all this excess emphasis and news to go on for 20 minutes unless there's actually something happening. But things like the Kardashians and all this, I don't see the point, in my personal opinion. I can't see the point. It'd be nice to actually see some positive role models out there that actually did something. I've got to admit, Elon Musk, very interesting what he's up to. I don't think he gets enough airtime myself. He's an interesting character. The fact that he's trying to change and revolutionize things in the space age and pushing forwards on that I love. And the good thing about on the Oculus, I do get these updates saying they're doing a launch, and you can sit and watch it with a load of people watching the next ship's launch. It gives you the updates when they're occurring. But that sort of stuff is interesting. There's a bit of something going forward. But I mean, in Spain, there's another important thing is you do find there's a lot more local news as well. So you'll hear things like TBT is Torrevieja TTV. Yeah. So they've got things going on locally, and I think that goes on nationally in the sense of different regions have different things. So you get bits going on in Guatemala, get the local updates on things like the fishing at Santa Pola, bit of interesting news. Torrevieja did really well on the anchovies for this year. I think their sales is one of the things that has been very successful for Torrevieja this year. Because obviously tourism's not the greatest at the minute, but they've had, I think, a bumper harvest on the anchovies. But the point being is, you get all this localized information. I do think that it'd be nice to have more of that going on, because it gives you more of a local insight into an area and what's on. I mean, I know they're terrible at informing you about something going on the street next week. But you can actually go onto the various local news and find things that are going on in the area, like Guatemala and its peppers. Now, the landlord that owns this place, he does the peppers himself. He's got a small farm. It's a what do you call it? Organic farm in Guatemala. His family have had it, I think, 300 years. Not the organic farm, but they've had the farm for over 300 years. I think the farmhouse is about 300 years old. But the point being is, he uses old seeds and things, so the food there is very, very tasty. So if you are going into Guatemala, as you're heading into off the main roundabout, heading in, not the bit down the bottom where the boats are, but at the top of the hill, heading into Guatemala, there's a large car park and there's a little side road that goes sort of like almost like a bit of a curb or a footpath. You go on the inside of that and there's the organic shops just there. And they have all sorts. There's like honey. I do recommend the tomatoes and the vegetables and all that. Really, really tasty. But they're very helpful. Nosy stuff. Very passionate about it. And the reason I'm mentioning him, he's always on the TV. He's become a bit of a local person on the old organics. We bump into him when we go to the food festival. Where's that up? That's near Elche. See, there's stuff around, and to be fair, now that the car's 90% there, it looks like the catalytic converter needs sorting now. My mechanic did highlight there was an issue with it because they drilled it out. Not my mechanic, but the previous owners, which I think's what caused the main issue on the filter. So I've got to sort of catalytic converter out on that. But we can start going to more of these events, which is the bits I want to share more because there's a lot more going on. If you're moving over here, there's a lot more going on than we often see. Because a lot of the time people don't travel to this stuff because a lot of it is all in Spanish. And a lot of people don't look for it or know where to find it, which is why I want to spend a bit of time on that. Same as I'll start doing more videos on the with the VR around areas as well. You know, where the last one with the Google Earth, where you could actually show you different parts. Because I think some people might find that useful as well. Because I know we go to these areas, but sometimes it's like the Ping Lake. I've had a few people couldn't find it. So I can show you in Google Earth the easiest way to get there. Okay. M. Shaka, always enjoy the quality of fruit and veg you can get in the markets in Spain. Much better than in Roski or even Morrison's, Asda, etc. It is, but I believe Spain's about 67 to 70% organic already. So that's probably why it's all a lot better. And I agree with it. And the funny thing is, even when we go to Aldi and Lidl, I think, I know the lettuce, for example, in Sainsbury's and Tesco's comes from this area. Because I know a couple of the delivery drivers that take them by truck. But I do agree. Definitely the fruit and veg, different kettle of fish. We're back on the fishing again. E Bogan. Hi, are you able to get medical treatment currently in Spain purely because everything not COVID related is turned away in UK? I'm private healthcare, so yeah, I can get treatment, but I don't think there's any prevention here. I also would say on the coast here, I don't think our case levels significantly high. People operate a bit better, keeping the distances, staying at home. But to be fair, on the coast here, I think the average age is 68, remember right? Or 65, I forget now. But the point being is a lot of people don't generally go out as much as you would elsewhere. And when it's raining outside, they're not going down to the beach. They're not walking the dog as much. Not traveling around as much. So it keeps the cases lower as well because people aren't engaging as much. I mean, my wife's part of the Ladies of Spain, and some of their events can have like 40 people. And they haven't had any events this year because of last year that I'm aware of because of the COVID. So I do think there's been a lot more proactive people here in avoiding contact with others and keeping themselves safe, which is obviously takes some of the pressure off the medical services. But also the UK medical services, I'm not sure where the stats are. You know, in reality, I would need to work out on the 5-year average and get the actual true figures, which probably ain't going to get till March. Because it always seems when we've looked back so far since this COVID scenario, they're not that far off where they were originally. Another Ebo, Dan, this is absolutely silly of them. You can't get doctor's appointments in person. Hey, my parents couldn't get doctor's appointments anyway, even before this. And I'm not saying, well, I will. The healthcare service is responsible for both of their deaths, in my personal opinion. Misdiagnosis is one of the reasons, and the other one, well, sending somebody home with migraines and stuff, saying they've got vertigo, which turns out to be a tumor. Was it? No, sorry, it's a blood clot. Blood clot. They killed him. My mother, they sent her home, misdiagnosed her. Very little. I've got to admit, I'm very anti NHS because it's all best in the world type stuff, and yet they're not. Costs a fortune, and there's a lot of problems in there that because they promote themselves as best in the world, you're not allowed to actually challenge and say, but it's not though, is it? Oh, you're bad. You're anti this. No, it's because of what they've done. They're very good at paying people off, etc. Propaganda machine. Stephen Burr, thanks, buddy. That's the plan. Be nice to have it there to travel around Spain as well. Yours to them whenever. Appreciate that, mate. Maybe we'll have some trips up to Granada or something. Great live, by the way. Very useful. Have to say you're in good hands, everybody. Top man. I appreciate that, mate. Is it raining where you are, Steve? Are you out working today? And Chaco, have you got good train links in La Mata? Can you get to Valencia, etc. with these? There's no train in La Mata. There's no train in Torrevieja. You've got to get the bus. The bus takes about 45 minutes, and once you're up in Alicante, you can get anywhere. It's very easy on the train from there. But the bus station in Torrevieja, you can get to Madrid and what have you anyway. It's not the fastest trip, I'll tell you that. But if you're wanting to sleep and then wake up at the other end, it's fantastic for that. But it's not the fastest. But yeah, it's not difficult to get around. Glenard, do you think the virus cases will rise when warmer weather comes? It should actually do the revert. Well, it's the reason this is odd is because they'll say that the cases went up, but the testing shot up. Remember, they added, I think, 5,000 troops for testing. They were running around. They were getting the army to run around Birmingham testing door by door. They could be selling double glazing at the same time. But the point being is, you will automatically get testing. If they increase the testing, you automatically get an increase in cases. Because if you only tested 100 people and only 5 people had COVID, then test 1,000 and you got 100 people, it's increased. Yeah. It's only because you increase the volume of testing, and because they may have already had it. It's just you never picked it up because you weren't testing for them before. So I do think the testing will be pushed. I do think they'll be pushing the vaccine a lot stronger. And now they're on about having to do variations, but like I said, that's normal stuff. Not that I'm sitting here going, I'll have the cure by Friday. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that this is normal in the medical industry. This is what they normally deal with. We have the flu every year. They don't sit and just go, well, we did a flu vaccine in 78. We're still using the same one. No, they have to keep updating it because things like you've got natural occurrences, but also then you have the ones that become antibiotic immune and all this sort of stuff that goes on. Also things like I remember it was the Danish bacon when there was an issue around human immune systems because of the medication that was going into the pigs that were making the bacon that then still had some of the medication in it, I believe. So those sort of things are examples of how the viruses will mutate and change. Because let's leave that for another day. But the point being is, it will constantly keep changing, and that's normal. That's the reality of it. Another Stephen Birth, good luck with the project. I'm sure you make a good profit too. Yeah, like I said, I mean, camper vans are always in demand. It's not something people disappear from, because and sell it in the summer. Just before the summer peak starts coming in, it all shoots up in price. But the point is, people like to do the camping thing, especially, I mean, Spain is probably one of the best ways to get around because it's such a vast place. The advantage you've got is you can stop start. So you go into, you do your Madrid thing, although a lot of the stuff in Madrid, the parking's on the ground. You may struggle to get in some of these places because I know even with my car with the roof box on, it was quite tight in some of them. But there's a lot of places to see and visit. But the advantage you've got is like you can go at your own pace. You can find somewhere to stop and make a cup of tea at the back of the van, sit and relax, watch a bit of TV, and then on to the next place or nap for an hour. Be careful in some of the lay-bys. I know, I can't remember his name. I think it's Tracy. They got coming over from France. While they were sleeping in the car, the window got smashed, bag grabbed, and they were gone like lightning. So just be careful on that front. Try and park where there's other people, and not on your own. That's a bit of advice there. I love a camper van, just wouldn't have any space to park it. Yeah, I mean, I had the van here, and to be fair, if it had a better engine in it, I'd have kept it because it would have just kept running. But the engine that was in there, it was the wrong engine. It'd been put in to fit the gearbox, so everything wasn't very high. It was very homemade, so it just wouldn't have been great. But we'll see what happens in the future. Stephen Bird, just stopped snowing, mate. Called it off and gone home, and it stops. And it stops. Always the case. And yes, to the trips. Cannot wait to do a road trip and get clued up on things. The future is bright. Fingers crossed. It can only go up. I think where we are now, it's not going to go down any further. I think where we're sitting at a point where we're just waiting. What do you want us to do now? Because that's what I was saying before. You may question the government, but it just seems the government get away with whatever they want to do at the moment. And it's a case of, right, what you're doing, let us know so we can just crack on with life. Beyond that, don't want to know, don't want to hear the excuses or whatever. Just tell me what you need and I will move past it, because myself, I'm frustrated with hearing this stuff that goes up and down like this. You know, I don't listen to Boris anymore at all. I mean, to be fair, there's some stuff on YouTube where I mainly look for the titles, and then if it's interesting, I'll go and look for the news articles, because some people get really frustrated with everything and stick a YouTube video up. So that's the channels I look for, because then they've actually picked out the stuff that may be of note or interest. So I don't have to go through the Love Island and all that other nonsense that goes on. If you do love Love Island, no offense, but myself, I just don't get it. I can't understand. I just don't see the point. Bogdan, can I rent an Airbnb or something in Spain and get there from UK given the current restrictions? I'm interested in the Spanish restrictions in particular. Best thing to do is actually just try and book one, because some people may still be open. The hotels, I believe, aren't open. But there may be some Airbnbs, because I know the apartment we look after in Torrevieja, we had some bookings even in the lockdown last year. There were still people booking and coming, and they were coming from Madrid and other places. I think 3 of them come from Madrid, 3 different groups. So I'll check on Airbnb, because some of them will still take accommodation, but I think it's at their discretion. Because we just had somebody today asking about the Philippines, and because we've got some apartments in the Philippines, and I said, well, to be fair, I'm not taking any bookings prior to April, simply because I don't know what the government's up to out there. Because it's very similar to everywhere else. It keeps changing. I want to go to, but can't fly out there even when flights were running. Need to buy a COVID test, etc. Trips end up being too expensive. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to settle down. I think that what they'll try and do is force people to have the vaccine, but if they're going to force you to still have a negative COVID test and quarantine, why bother having the vaccine? What they want to do is actually say, well, I've had the vaccine, because it's only 70% efficient. So the question is, are they saying that they're seeing it as pointless themselves? This is the problem. They're not consistent or even coming out and saying, right, do that. Your chances of getting there are a lot less, but it's not guaranteed. Up to you if you want it or not. Because at the end of the day, it should be predominantly for those that have got a health risk. And the woman in Wales just proven the point that it's only 70% efficient, and she's having a complaint because she's picked up COVID, and her family's caught it from her, I assume. So then she's a bit frustrated and annoyed that it didn't work. Well, did it or not? Because that'll be the next thing. Well, you didn't catch COVID as bad as it could be in all that scenario. Same as you get with people who take the flu vaccine and get really ill from the flu vaccine. It says, yeah, but it could have been worse if you hadn't had it. But it may not have been worse. It's the other side of that. Marco Giuliani, residents only can enter. Yes, that's an important point. You've got to have your residency card. And even with that, British Airways, I think it was it 11 people they prevented from flying, even though they had their green residency cards. But I think it will be probably after March. I wouldn't book anything before March at the minute, because all the Christmas stuff will be out through the political circles by March, because that'll have given a realistic timeline of information for the data to be dissected properly. Doesn't mean that they're going to tell us the real information, but it just means that we should have a better view of where the government's heading with everything, because by March also the case numbers should be dropping. Don't get me wrong, I don't expect hospitalized case numbers would have dropped, but I don't expect case numbers to be dropped in the sense of people with positive COVID. And the reason for that is I think we're already heading towards herd immunity. I think that it's got to a point where it's already spreading at a rate that they can't even count what the real rate is. Now, the point with that being is, if it's already got to that point, you get to a point where restricting things become pointless, because that many people in the population have already got it, that unless you've had it or are a vulnerable person, the rest of the population is probably better off just going about their business as normal. And like I said, these other strain things, I'm not fussed about those. I do think it's more a case of, you're going to catch this one 10 times faster than the other. So what? If you've caught it, you've caught it. If you catch another strain of it and you're ill again, I'll treat it the same as I would with the flu. You have bad flu some years and good flus another year. There's never a good flu, but you may have one that makes you groggy for a couple of days and some that you really struggle to get rid of. But I don't think keeping everything confined is fixing the problem, because we already seem to be heading to where we were at day one when Boris touted the herd immunity conversation. And everything else has just been noise and disruption. Because, okay, we've got some vaccines, but they're not 100% efficient. They'll no doubt have variants of those. You may even have to have another vaccine after this vaccine, whether they have one that's more efficient. But you're probably going to end up with, it's a bit like the flu. I mean, I don't really call it a flu vaccine, but normally it gets called the flu jab because you have it every year. So I don't think it really vaccinates you against it. It just supposedly means that you're less, it affects you less from, see a lot of this stuff I try and avoid. Like, people, oh well, it says this on the packet. Okay, well, fine. But for me, I'm like, vive la vive. I don't need to be constantly saying, oh, you could that, you could this, they could that. I could fall off the edge of the world tomorrow if suddenly was proven the Earth is flat. It's just as valid, a lot of this stuff. Don't get me wrong, the Earth is not flat before somebody questions me on that one. But the point is, a lot of the information I see, and my personal opinion is, it's as valid because of the way things are manipulated so far beyond the original context. You can pick at it very easily, at which point they don't want to talk to you anymore. Stephen, Glenn will be easy to get a residency in Spain after UK exit. Will it be easy? The UK's already exited. The funny thing is, I'm already seeing, because I'm part of the varying groups in Facebook, etc., and there's already talk about the change in government and pushing for another referendum to go back into the EU. So this is the thing, when that was nearly 50-50. This is what you're going to get. You're going to get challenges to go in and go out and go in. It's going to be an ongoing saga. Spain and the residency is not too difficult. If you're retiring, it's far easier. When you're trying to work or work remotely, it's a bit more complicated. If you work online, even more complicated. But it's not impossible, and it's easier to deal with than the British. I've got to be honest, dealing with immigration from, say, the Philippines, to do the visa process is about £6,000 all in, from the accountant I've looked at and people I know. Where Spain is literally turn up, not happy with the form, come back with another form, come back with something else they ask you for, and you just keep going until eventually they accept it. The UK, they want to push for the cash. It's a massive cash cow. I think it's pointless now. Just shield the vulnerable and end lockdowns, all restrictions fully. Exactly. That's my personal view, because I think it's already gone to a point of herd immunity, in the sense of there's that many people with it or had it or not affected by it. I think we're already past the point of prevention. I'm surprised the UK has behaved so well against it. Did they behave so well? There's been plenty of people making an absolute fortune out of this. And I would expected riots, the places smashed up, lawlessness. Well, I think this is why you start with a furlough scheme. But I think these things may occur in the next 6 months if this continues, because a lot of people coming to the end of the mortgage holidays and all the other stuff that was all fluffily put together to say, don't go to work, stay at home, and lose your job. They need to get things moving again. But you've got that delay from like people with mortgage issues and stuff. And that'll catch up. The businesses that won't reopen, the businesses that stacked with debt for rents and stuff on properties, they weren't allowed to operate in. And that's one of the things I would, it's always been with me, is basically that if you own a business, if you want to open your store on your premises, the liability is with you. The same as somebody tripping over your doorstep, it's you that gets sued. So if you believe you can open your business safely and will take that liability, it should be up to that business, in my personal opinion, not the government. Because this is now whether I think it was 2 days ago, I was reading an article where they're talking about the police looking to have rights to go into people's houses to see if people are... the number of people in people's houses. That's a major law change. That's a very high risk stuff. I do not agree with that on any level. The reason for that being is we had enough law changes with Tony Blair. Are we saying we now want people to come into our houses when they feel like it? That's very, very risky. It starts changing the justifications. I can understand if a crime's occurred, all that sort of stuff. but ability to just access your house based on we assume or we want to check this, I don't agree with. Bogdan, I also personally know people that got the vaccine but later on still test positive, waiting for this summer with the Trump. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the nurse in Wales. Exactly. There's no, it's, I mean, 70% accuracy is a bit like going on a horse race. I know people bet on less odds, but if it was 70% chance, a lot of people were going, well, that's 50-50 really, because they're saying, well, you may still get it, which is either you're going to get it or not get it. So it's still 50-50. So yeah, I fully understand that. And the point is, they haven't said it's been 100% from day one. At the same time, even if you've had the booster and everything, is there a point where you're less likely to get it? So it's moved to 80-90%. I don't think we're at that level. I don't think they know. Like I said, with these new strains, they'll be going, I'm not sticking my name to that. If you catch a different strain, I'm not saying that we vaccinated against this. We've vaccinated against COVID-19, COVID-19 UK, COVID-19 African variant, COVID-19 Isle of Man variant. They ain't got to do that. They've been mad. That puts their name on the Let's Sue Me list. Bogdan, unfortunately, currently, I know it's a little shortage of goods in shops in UK, Essex area. Hopefully, they'll sort this out because of having restrictions and shortages is definitely bad. I don't know if I mentioned this on this channel. I did on my other channel. When they were saying there was no issues with the ports with the Brexit, as soon as they said that, I knew there was issues at the ports, and there is issues at the ports. So there is issues around the bureaucracy. There is a backlog from this whole COVID testing scenario, and obviously the paperwork has created other issues. It's definitely not streamlined and efficient, which is obviously what a politician would love to tell you, because then they don't get challenged on it. But the reality is, from what I'm reading, it's not so smooth. Like I was saying, the Scottish fisheries at the moment are taking a bit of a hammering from what I'm reading, because it's taken 3 or 4 days to get the products to parts of Europe, which with fish is not good. There's a whole ream of paper. It's not like just one document. I think it's about 4 documents involved, and how many pages that is, I have no idea. I haven't seen them, but I'm sure it's not just sign here and off you go. Sign here, fill this one in, need a copy of that, triplicate of that one, 2 copies of that, send that one back to them, bring that stamped version in. The same way you deal with immigration paperwork. It's never a case of just fill that in. Online form, sign, check, where you go. No, that ain't happening. So yeah, it's a mess. Stephen Berth, you want the life in Spain is possible, even with all going on. Don't let it put you off. Have a look through all these vids, and one thing is clear: it's doable. All the proof is there. Thanks again, mate. Thanks for that, Stephen. Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, if you're retired, I've got to be honest. Your life is a bit easier than mine. I've got a family here in Spain, which means I've got a lot of responsibilities because we have private healthcare. Obviously, I've got to deal with work generation. We're in the process of purchasing the property. We've seen a property we like, but it is 3 times more than I had budgeted for. But at the same time, with this whole scenario in the middle of, that may reduce significantly over the next few months. And at the same time, trying to work on some business stuff on top of my work stuff to generate more cash revenue to actually assist with making that happen. So, yeah, another life of man variant. But that's how. I know it sounds a bit cynical or whatever, but the reason for that is it's like say, the UK strain. I don't think it is a UK strain. I think that's where it's been tested and picked up. It could have come from anywhere. So the point being is, they've got it's a variant. Any strong variant will alter it, and it's the same when you get the flu. Like I said with the flu jab, because they don't. I mean, it's a jab, not a vaccine, because it's not preventative in the sense of it may reduce it, but it's not going to stop you getting the flu. This is similar. It's not going to stop you getting COVID-19. 100%. Now, what does that mean is the question, because if we say, well, you're not going to get 100% ill, is a bit like saying, well, you'll be sick but not as sick. But it doesn't actually mean you won't catch it. And it doesn't mean that the possibilities of not catching it aren't there anymore. So there's multiple bits and pieces, and because they keep talking about new variants and all this, it just adds even more insecurity on this being a solution. But I do think we could do with a new government. Anybody want to be voted in for the next prime minister? I think this is the big thing that we need to look at as the bigger picture. Is we need to look at new politicians. I think the career politicians are not to the nation's benefit. I do think there needs to be new people brought into the United Kingdom's parliament system to inject some A, common sense, but B, something for the actual country, because a lot of this stuff seems to be around the politicians for their pockets. And nobody's being jailed or put through the court system or having stuff seized or anything. Nothing's happening. It's just leave it. It'll be all right. Everyone's focused on this bit of media. Keep that going. Look at Tony Blair. I think he set the standard. Anyway, Glenn, lorry drivers turned away from Kent because of lack of paperwork to export to Europe. Exactly. Also, you need a permit for Kent, from what Facebook's telling me, and the gov.uk, because gov.uk is advertising on Facebook that you need a permit to actually go through Kent to the port now. So, yeah. And obviously, it sounds like they didn't inform a lot of people, which is a bit like the fisheries, a bit like the immigration, a bit like British Airways. There's been a lack of communication on formalized documentation and processes, which then puts stuff into limbo because people go, I don't know, I'm not taking responsibility for that. So you've got somebody with a green card. I'm a resident of Spain. Here's my green card. Here's my passport. Here's my negative COVID test. I want to go home. I haven't got a form that tells me what I need to do now. No, you can't go to Spain because your resident card isn't valid because Brexit's occurred. And from the media coverage, that was what they were saying. Now, whether that's correct or not, because the problem I get with media is I can't really trust it 100%, because I can understand from my own experience when we were with Jet2 going to the UK for last Christmas and New Year. Jet2 rang the immigration office in Birmingham Airport. All our papers are valid, got all the right documents, and the immigration guy goes, no, you can't come in. You're not allowed. You can't board the plane, blah, blah, blah. The office, Jet2 office, then rang somebody else at Birmingham Airport and says, they've got this. Yeah, no problem. On your way. And that's what you're dealing with. Even that process was already set in stone, already been done for years, and you still got two people, same job, same building, completely different answers. And this stuff we can't even get a straight answer on the majority of stuff around the COVID, what Brexit really looks like, all this sort of stuff. And then you're going, right, there's no problem at the ports, no problems at the airports, and they're getting problems everywhere. And it's because the processes and that were not what I would say formalized and clear enough for people to be easily able to follow them. So whether that was with British Airways, I don't know if they had rang the Spanish authorities in, I think it's for Barcelona, and they said no, those papers aren't valid anymore. That may have been what occurred, and then British Airways took the blame for it, or whether British Airways just took a complete blanket view on it and got the paperwork wrong completely, or they got the wrong advice from a representative from the British government. Who knows? But I can't just blame British Airways for that, although it does seem to have only been the BA flight that's had this problem. But it does sort of show that these things aren't so straightforward. You've got to educate people. The process has got to be correct. It's got to be easy to understand. It's got to be very simplified and do this, 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 and this, so that people can actually do it very smoothly. It's like even at the port authority, who's dealing with the paperwork? Is it somebody in the company in the Netherlands, France, Spain, or whatever? Or have they left it to the truck driver to sort out that's just picked up a load of fish, steel, or whatever they're doing, and they go, off you go, sort that out on the way down, because it's not coordinated properly from what I'm seeing and the results. So anyway, I think that's going to be something that's going to be ongoing for, like I said, wipe off January, February. And personally, I say wait till the end of March before things start to head into a bit of common sense. The Prime Minister makes 158,000 a year. That's little for the amount of hassle you get. Yeah. Apparently you're restricted from doing any business on the side, not a massively appealing job. How many non-executive board member seats do you end up with as an ex-Prime Minister? It'd be interesting to review what people do, like, say, Tony Blair doing these speeches and stuff at a phenomenal rate. I wonder how you get on those opportunities. It's never a straight cut, and they know it. They know what I think it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was on about the book. They were talking about when people try to help people with less wealth, it's always taken from the middle, because the ones at the top already pay for the best lawyers, the best accountants, and obviously tied up with the lawmakers and everything else. So if they're taking a loophole from here, they've already found another one. I've got another 20 already lined up. It's never straightforward. It always ends up getting taken from the middle. So the point being is, they don't need to take the money today. There is always opportunity to take it tomorrow, and next year, a guaranteed board post for 5 years or whatever it is done. There is other opportunities out there. So if it's not taken directly, it doesn't need to be. And I'm not saying that's what is occurring or does occur, but I would hazard a guess it probably is. I'm from London. Noticed a shortage of stock in shops too. I haven't seen it myself, but I'm having problems with some stuff coming from the UK. I mean, it's the first time I've ever had an Amazon delivery that actually doesn't have a date, 0 updates, and it's because the product's coming from the UK. And all stuff I've ordered since then from other places, we've already had delivered. That's a bit of a. I'll wait and see what happens. I really don't want any import charges. That's really going to be the icing on the cake for me. Stuart Crawford, more important, when is it going to stop raining? I believe on Tuesday, next Tuesday. My wife's already been checking the weather. If you're on about in this area, I don't know where you are. So could be anywhere. But yeah, wherever you are, it's going to be Tuesday. All right, guys, been nice chatting. I'm going to head off because I've got some other stuff to do today. If you do want to have a look at or join up and subscribe on the tutorial channel, it's in the chats down the side. There may be some stuff that are interesting to you. That's maybe it covers all sorts in there, but it's mainly tutorials. It's going to have a lot of stuff on the VR setup. Going to do some stuff on setting up the video chats like this. So if somebody who actually wants to set up their own video chats, there'll be bits on that as well. I think there's probably a fair few. How many tutorials are already in there? I bet there's a few already in there. How many? Yeah, there's not many in there at the moment. It's about 10 in there at the moment that have been existing. But I'm going to spend a bit of time on that one because obviously the rain's there, lockdowns keeping us away from where we want to be. So with that, I'm not expecting to be able to do much on the Spanish channel till about March. But maybe we can do some stuff with the VR headset and the Google Earth to talk about different areas. Maybe we'll cover the Alhambra because maybe it can. Because one of the things I do recommend, maybe this is the way to do it. I'll do some videos which actually cover some locations. So if you're going to say Barcelona, I can sort of put them on the map, saying there's the fountain. This is the fountain worth visiting. Get your metro card. Do all this sort of stuff. And these are the metro stations, all that sort of stuff. And then you could sort of cover a greater area. So if you do go there on a trip, you know where all the stuff is. You know where you want to go. I mean, you can literally buy a map and just circle and say, oh, Matt's talked about this and shows a video of that. And then if you go there, you know where all the best things are. Good thing about that, I can cover London and Paris as well because I've been to both. I'm fairly well travelled. Yeah, another take care. Try doing these more often. I'm going to try and do one a week at the minute. It's going to be, I'll have to do more of a chat-a-thon, these types of things, because at the moment, can't really go outside. It's grey, it's miserable. But we can talk about general stuff, do a bit on the news, do about little bits of updates on all the bits and pieces we've got going on. Keep an eye on the media for anything that's changing to allow the travel. Not just to Spain, but the whole of Europe, because I do think some things are going to change. Stuart Crawford in Guatemala. Just wave to you up there. We were talking earlier about the peppers, funny enough. Another take care. Try doing these more. Yeah, I will do. Another very informative. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And Shackle, thank you. Good chat. Thank you. Glenn, thank you, Matt. Sorry, safe and hope. Thank you, Matt. Stay safe and hope your Amazon comes soon without paying tax. That's the one thing it is, because it is electronics. So I'll wait. I might even cancel that and try and get it from elsewhere. We'll see. A midweek one would be good too. Well, I'll tell you what, put suggestions on times and whatever, and put GMT, because obviously I can work to the UK timetable. Just keep it to GMT. And we'll see where we can fit them in. All right. Have a great day, guys. And thanks for watching. Take care.